Hi Daniel, and hi everyone else. If you're thinking this is bedhead, it is because it's bedhead. I've just woken up and have been traveling so much lately that I am just catching up on a bit of sleep. So apologies that this is a day late. But I thought that, now this is for everyone, not just Daniel. I thought that what I would do is start new practice, that when a student asks me a question, which I think is particularly good, I'm going to take the opportunity of recording a little video which gives an answer to that question. And Daniel, who's one of the kids who I've taught lately, has asked a very practical question. And that is, hi sir, could you give some advice as to when I should start studying for a particular test or a particular exam? Now, at what point should I study for something? And there's an interesting component to this, because the general received wisdom, which a lot of people will have heard from teachers throughout their academic career, is you should be studying 3 weeks before the exams. It's 3 weeks to go. Now get going. Now, I actually, generally speaking, don't agree with that. And very often, students will give me two reasons that they aren't willing to do that. And so, sir, I'm not willing to study 3 weeks before the exams because two reasons come up. Number one, I'm lazy. Now, I understand that. I'm human too, and I empathize completely, but that's pathetic. At that point, you just got to put on your big girl trousers, your big boy trousers, and work, even though you don't particularly want to. So that one, I understand being a human being, but I don't think that that is a decent answer to the question, or it's a decent excuse for you work-wise. Here's the one that actually does make sense to me. What makes sense to me is when students say, sir, I'm not going to learn 3 weeks before the exam because I'm going to forget the information in the interim, and I'm going to wind up doing the information again. I'm going to wind up studying again the night before. So if I'm going to have to cram the night before the morning of the exam anyway, what is the point in doing it twice? Now, that actually makes perfect sense to me. I think that's a perfectly reasonable answer, because that's just a massive inefficiency. And human beings, if they're being sensible, don't really want to be inefficient. So I understand when people say that, and that's going to be the root of my answer. My answer is that you can't stipulate necessarily when you should start studying before the exams without taking into account how well am I going to remember the information and for how long. Now, if you're one of these people who doesn't know how to use their memory properly and is working on that last minute recall, you leave yourself with no option except learning the night before the morning of the exam. But Daniel, in your case, that is no longer relevant. And for anyone else who's watching this video, because I'm going to put it out there for general consumption as well, the reason it's no longer relevant for you, Daniel, is because I've shown you how to use visual memory to make sure that information sticks in your mind for a long time. Now, for general people out there who don't know exactly how to do it, this is going to be somewhat inadequate, but will still be useful. Here's a practical thing I told Daniel. I think that when you take notes, when you take study notes, it's quite useful to almost pretend like you're going to cheat and write out the kind of cheat sheet that you could probably get away with in the exams. That's small enough that you could smuggle it into the exam and get away with it. So literally pretend like you're going to cheat and make a cheat sheet. Why is that useful? Because it forces you to be ruthless about what you actually want to take into the exam, not every single scrap of information. So once you've got that cheat sheet, there is a memory technique, which I call filming, which allows us to convert that data into a format that the brain is better able to remember. Basically, you write that next to the core information. So you have your cheat sheet, but next to that, you have the visual memory form of that. So Daniel, you'll find that those things are described on page 77, 78, 79 of your manual. You'll find that there's a section on effective note-taking, which includes how to take notes in a way that you can remember. And now, this is going to answer your question exactly. If you have taken notes in that format, you can have prepared the notes months, or believe it or not, even years in advance. And then the night before the exam, you can then revise them in seconds. It doesn't take you ages of reading the textbook. You can revise those cheat sheets incredibly quickly, and they stick. Now, the good news is, if you've used visual memory to memorize them in the first time, often they will have stuck for months or even years, believe it or not. But even if they haven't, you just reread it and it's back in your mind for another couple of weeks, couple of months, couple of years, sort of thing. So my answer to you, Daniel, is I do think that you should start preparing for the work a couple of weeks, couple of months before the exams. But I don't want you to forget the stuff. So I want you to use the visual memory techniques, which are going to allow you to remember the information that much better. Because then when it comes to revision, it's done incredibly quickly if you use that particular note-taking bit of advice which I've given. Then for other people out there, you might not know how to use your visual memory properly, but you can use that idea of the cheat sheet so that you've got minimal information, and then shortly before the exam, meaning the night before, 2 days before, 3 days before, at least go over that core information to make sure, is this still in my mind or is it not? Okay, so that's the advice that I have for you, is that you don't need to cram the night before. You can prepare long in advance, because if you're using your visual memory properly, the stuff will still stick. And even if it hasn't stuck, you can revise it very quickly. There you go. There's the answer. And here is Gangile, who I often mention in the class. Hello, Margot. I love you to bits. And here is Ubuntu. I mention him less often in class. Don't tell him that. Okay, Daniel, I really hope that helps you. Oh, and just hang on. I need a scenic backdrop to end this video. So the short answer is, you can do the work long in advance, provided using visual memory, it'll stick, and also make sure that you are taking notes in such a way that you can revise very rapidly, and then there is no problem with starting work a couple of weeks or even a couple of months before. If you don't use the memory stuff, then I'm afraid it's a totally different story, and I would recommend using it. Thank you, Daniel. Bye-bye.